Britain should be on high alert tonight because I can reveal that illegal migrants affiliated with Hamas have now crossed the English Channel into the UK. It comes as GB News exclusively revealed today that 1,900 illegal migrants have crossed the Channel since just last weekend, shattering all previous records for the number of arrivals this point in any year since the crisis began in 2016.
قرشتو شيران زروي حسرتو دردم من حتى دست أمسر فسطلنا بزمر دم من عاشقي تساوي كزالو قردني برخال نيم عاشقي تشيو تلانو بندنو برد.
There they are, arriving in Dover today with the Border Force taxi service picking them up. Today was the 8th straight day of small boat crossings. So much, I guess, for Smash the Gangs. But buried amongst the staggering numbers is a more dark and sinister development, because it appears that Palestinians linked with Hamas, the butchers of October the 7th, are now crossing the English Channel to England on small boats. So that guy there is accused of being a member of a Hamas-endorsed unit involved in serious violence on the Gaza-Israel border who wants to, quote, die for the sake of Allah. According to the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, his name is Abu Wade, and he has a TikTok account with tens of thousands of followers where he's been documenting his journey to Britain. This is him in a Calais camp on Monday, just this week, or Tuesday perhaps, waiting for smugglers to launch him across the Channel.
طول عمر الناس بتراهن عليا، النهارده أول يوم أراهن على نفسي، وبعون الله كسبان.
And this is him preparing to leave France on what we believe is Wednesday. We understand Abu Wade is now, tonight, in the UK. We don't know where he is. But if you want an idea of what this guy is about, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism have been doing some important digging. This is him previously taking to TikTok to rip up an Israeli flag.
وصلوا لي هذا الفيديو لكل واحد داعم الكيان الصهيوني. هاي إسرائيل تاعتكم. هاي إسرائيل تبعتكم. هذا هي إسرائيل تاعتكم. شايفينها؟
And this is him taking to the microphone in Gaza, railing against Jews, saying his loftiest ambition was to die for Allah. So the CAA will share with us the full shocking details from 10 p.m. about this guy, so stay tuned for that. But Abu Wade has also been pictured at a conference addressed by the now-deceased leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, the primary mastermind behind the October 7th slaughters. So I'm asking, how many more members of Hamas, ISIS or any other bloodthirsty terror group are now roaming our streets and being put up in taxpayer-funded hotels? We've asked the Home Office tonight whether they're aware of where Abu Wade is. They said in a statement, "We're committed to ending small boat crossings which undermine our border security and restoring order to the asylum system to ensure that the rules are respected and enforced. While it's a long-standing rule that we never comment on individual cases or operational matters, the British public can be reassured that we take all steps necessary at all times to protect the nation's security." The fact is that this man is in Britain, and that fact alone should warrant the small boats invasion being classed as a national security emergency. So I say tonight, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, over to you. To reveal more of this tonight, I'm joined by GB News' very own Homeland Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, thank you for your company tonight. You are, of course, on the pulse of this story day in, day out. You exclusively revealed the shocking figures tonight. What can you tell us about, A, these figures, a record since 2016, and following that, this guy who's apparently linked to Hamas?
Well, the figures are unprecedented, there's no doubt. An 8th straight day today of arrivals in the Channel, which for this time of the year, when conditions out in the Channel are normally pretty horrific, it is, as I say, very unusual indeed. We've had conditions which have either been a bit better or borderline, and even when conditions aren't great, the people smugglers are still pushing these boats out into the Channel. And what that's meant is that actually for the year so far, we're now pushing 4,000, which is higher than at any point since this crisis began in 2016. And you alluded to some of the real concerns that people have around security there, and they're right to be concerned, because many of those that come across the Channel are instructed by the people smugglers and even some of the NGOs, the charities that are out there as well, to throw their documentation away, to come up with a backstory that makes their case all that bit more powerful in terms of trying to persuade the authorities here in the UK that they should get asylum. But a consequence of throwing your identity away means that in many instances the authorities have absolutely no idea who these people are. Occasionally, of course, if they enter international criminal databases, their details can be there, but if they're not on those databases, then we simply don't know. And we know in this country, as we're seeing in Germany and France and elsewhere in Europe, that those coming from overseas, particularly asylum seekers, there are a number of those, and it can only be a small number, but can still have deadly consequences, who turn to violent extremism.
Yeah, you only need one, Mark. Whether it's 40,000 a year or 20,000, you only need one of those people to turn to extremism and violent extremism for it to become a problem. We saw the extraordinary footage of today, that boat rocking up to Dover, or just off Dover, accompanied by Border Force. We knew this was happening anyway, that they act as almost, I mean, they've been accused of being a taxi service, but just explain really what Border Force, their role is. When do they pick up migrants and where do they take them back to? Here we are, this is the image here.
Well, any time, really, that there is a small boat in the Channel that crosses to UK waters, they will be intercepted by Border Force. If all the Border Force vessels are tied up, then the RNLI lifeboats will be called in to assist. And the reason for that is simple, because these boats are unseaworthy. They've got into difficulties in the past. We've seen that just today. Another migrant died in the Channel and another fell overboard. 6 or 7, at least, who've died so far this year. It was more than 70 last year. So under obviously international rules of the sea, the UK is obliged to go to intercept them, to pick them up. I feel a bit for Border Force and for the RNLI. They are just doing their job. At the end of the day, any decision on a tougher policy, a decision on turning back, for instance, the migrants, picking them up, landing them back in France, or enacting a deterrent to ensure that anyone who arrives here illegally doesn't get to stay in the UK and get sent off to a third country. The previous government, of course, had Rwanda in mind. That is for the politicians to decide on that approach. It's not for Border Force or the RNLI. They've got to do the job that they're tasked with at the end of the day. But as I see it, 8 months in now to this Labour government, with this smash the gangs policy of Sir Keir Starmer, I think it's in deep crisis, looking at unprecedented numbers who are crossing the Channel so far this year. We are on course to surpass easily the 36,800 who crossed the English Channel last year. That law and order approach alone doesn't seem to be working, and there are many out there with intimate knowledge of maritime security who say we need a deterrent like the Rwanda scheme, the scheme that was scrapped on Sir Keir Starmer's first day in office.
OK, Mark White, thank you for that update. And GB News is ahead of the game on the numbers because Mark White's on the ball. We also have a spotter down at Dover day in, day out, counting the number of boats coming in. So tomorrow, you'll see the rest of the mainstream media, the broadcasters, picking up on the numbers. We are 24 hours ahead. Always. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the anarchist and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie, and the media strategist Andy Twelves. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
Welcome along. Happy weekend.
Yep.
Lisa, your thoughts on this? I mean, first of all, the 1900 is shocking, but for me, the even more staggering revelation today is this guy who, maybe he's not a fully fledged member of Hamas, he's at least, we can say, heavily linked and affiliated to Hamas.
I think there's sort of 3 points to this. It's the numbers, because that's a lot of people that we have to support. And where are they going? More and more hotels are now being turned into refugee hotels. Local communities become very worried about that, and I think that's one of the issues. The second issue is obviously security. Who are they? And how come there's so many sort of TikTokers now? This is the second one who's had like hundreds of thousands of followers. Remember Madapasa?
He's got Madapasa.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Whatever happened to him? He's got more followers than me. Well, I don't have TikTok, but he's got, Andy, more followers than most of us sat here on this panel. This guy coming over today or this week, 150,000 people follow him on TikTok. You're not too concerned, though, are you?
I think I trust the UK intelligence sharing agreement with Israel. I'm sure that the military intelligence services would be aware if an actual member of Hamas was coming to our shores. But as far as I'm aware, there's not actually any evidence he's a member of Hamas.
Well, the campaign for anti-Semitism says that he's heavily affiliated with Hamas.
I don't know what their evidence was. I read it earlier.
Aren't you worried though?
Well, you saw the videos.
I saw that. Yeah, he threw an Israel flag in the bin. He ripped it up, but he also does regular.
He was also on the mic in Gaza, railing against Jews.